कभी भी नहीं मैं इस बात पे यकीन करता। वो कोई उसके ऊपर किसी चीज का साया था। एक बुजुर्ग ने कहा।
This is a case from Lahore, Pakistan, in which a judge gave the murderer a horrific punishment for his crimes. He ordered him to be strangled in front of his victims and his body to be cut into 100 pieces, then dissolve it in acid and place it in the streets in front of civilians. What could he have done to deserve such punishment? What was his crime? Why did he deserve such public humiliation and utmost cruelty? So, let's start the video and discuss the case about an infamous serial killer from Pakistan, Javed Iqbal Umair. On the 23rd of December 1999, the police station of Lahore Main District received a letter, diary, and a package where a guy confessed his crime for killing 100 boys. First they read the letter and diary. They could not believe it. They could not believe his story as he looked so innocent. The idea was completely dismissed by the police that an innocent-looking man could murder 100 boys. As the police did not believe his story, he sent the letter and the diary to a Lahore newspaper's chief news editor confessing to the rape and murder of 100 runaway boys, all aged between 6 and 16. In the letter, he wrote the names, exact date of the murder of each boy. Javed Iqbal was a simple-looking middle-aged man who had an innocent-looking face. He was among the respectable people of his community. He always had a genuine smile on his face. With his glasses and few strands of gray hair, he always appeared as well-composed, sophisticated, innocent-looking guy. He always dressed neat and never looked threatening in any way. Never in their wildest dreams could anyone think that such a guy with an angelic face could ever harm anyone. In his personal life, he was divorced twice and his days were usually spent roaming around the streets and shops of Lahore. Later we got to know that it was his hunting ground. This was the place where he traced his prey. He could see many kids and young boys who could easily fall to his prey. He would not kidnap a kid from a good family because their parents could file a complaint of missing person in police station. They would investigate and he could get caught. So his target were always the orphans, neglected kids who did not have anyone to care for them, who did not have anyone to ask about their whereabouts. He always targeted boys aged 6 to 16 years who gets easily lured by money and sweets. He used to take these kids, feed them well, clothe them, give them proper shelter, watch TV with them. These kids were always deprived from these things, a comfortable life, good food, so it meant a lot to the poor kids and would happily trade anything for it. Javed used to keep these kids in a flat near Ravi Road. He used to convince the kids that if they worked for him, they would be taken care of. Kids who were always seen as a burden and portrayed like they had no hope for a good future were easily lured by a decent-looking middle-aged guy who was easy to trust as he was nearly their father's age. They could not have even imagined that this guy could sexually assault them. He killed 100 boys and raped all these kids, 100 innocent kids. Imagine how long his killing spree continued. The trauma the kids went through while they were with Javed. We can't even imagine. Let's say the young boys could have had some idea about what they were going through, but just imagine the kids aged 6 who had no idea what was happening to them. They can't even differentiate between a good touch from a bad touch. And this cycle sometimes took him few days to few months. Taking a kid to his home, building his trust for him, making him let his guards down and then assaulting him. But it was like a simple routine to him. He was so patient throughout this process. He used to assault these kids for months, and when his thirst was quenched, he used to discard these kids by killing them. Imagine these poor kids having their life stolen from them with such cruelty. We can clearly see that Javed lacked remorse for anything. He did not have any compassion, empathy, and love for any of these kids, and the most horrifying thing is he was not afraid of anyone. Even if someone is not of a good heart, he or she would always fear the punishment, so they would refrain from doing it. But this monster wasn't even afraid of his own death. After assaulting these kids for a long period of time and after being done with them, he used to take these kids to a room from where the noise couldn't escape, and no one could come for their rescue. He would make sure of it. He used a specific method to kill them. He used to lie on his bed and the kid would sit on the ground near the bed and he would start playing the TV. The kid would be distracted with the TV and think that this was like their usual routine and nothing out of ordinary. But boy, they were so wrong. He used to strangle the kids from the bed and kill them. Imagine a 6-year-old boy being strangled by a 45-year-old man. The strength they had to resist to survive. They couldn't defend themselves. It was impossible for them to come out of the room alive. In the letter given to the police, he had even mentioned about the location of the bodies, and he had mentioned that if they are curious about the dead bodies, then they should visit his house. Upon investigating Javed's house, they found that he was from a wealthy family. It was all the money that his father earned. He used to work hard and sometimes it took a toll on his own health, but he wanted his 8 children to be economically stable for a long period of time. Javed was the 6th child of his parents, and on initial days he was quite close to his parents. Since he was from a rich family, he attended a private school and went to a government Islamic college for his higher studies. His father had promised him that if Javed finished his college education, he would buy Javed 2 huge plots of land where he could do anything and use it like he wants. His father wanted a good, economically independent future for his son and couldn't let his kids be stricken by the same poverty that he had fought and uplifted himself from. After completing his college, his father did as he had promised. Javed used the first property to build a house for himself and his second property for his business work of steel recasting, like recycling of steels. His business was running great and he had lots of money as a profit from the work. About his early life, during his early 20s, he had just finished his college and had a great business running. His parents couldn't have been more proud, but they wanted their son to get married, and after a few years it even got to a point that they started pressurizing him. His parents even started forcing him for his arranged marriage, but he said he was against the concept of arranged marriage, as he thought marrying someone without getting to know them was pointless. So he said he would find his bride on his own. If he failed doing so, then they could search a girl for him and he would get married without any complaint. Few days after that day, he met a boy in the streets of Lahore and he approached him saying that he would take care of the boy's need if he agreed to work for him in his industry. The kid was poverty-stricken, so he agreed and went to Javed's house with him. He knew that kid had a sister, and since both were orphans, so he asked the kid to take him to his sister. They both met his sister and they talked for a few minutes, and Javed agreed on marrying her. He asked her to marry him after talking to her for just 10 minutes, so you can imagine how much importance he gave to this marriage. This girl agreed on marrying him as was their way towards a good future. Javed was their way to happiness, so they took it. He promised them that he would give them everything they've ever wished for. The girl also knew that Javed was from a wealthy family, so both the kids were happy, but they had no idea what they were getting themselves into. He married that naive girl so that he could dominate both them and keep the boy around him all the time. He knew that once they were with him, they couldn't deny him anything and completely surrender themselves to him. For a few years his life was going well. He had a kid. His work was smooth, but after some time they got divorced as his interest was more in the boy than his own wife. Now he was alone and started returning back to his old habits. He started visiting the streets and shops of Lahore. Now he started assaulting boys again, but this time his parents started having doubts. They did not have any idea, but they knew that their son was doing something wrong, so they visited Javed's house. Boys in their early teenage years, living with a man in his mid-30s, seemed weird to his parents too. They had no idea about the intentions of their son, but after seeing the faces and condition of the poor kids, they knew Javed was up to something evil. The first time he got caught was in early 1990s, when the entire city knew that he raped the minor boys. The news spread like a wildfire. The people felt bad for the helpless kids and were furious with Javed. The mob went crazy and they marched towards Javed's house with the intention that they will get him to confess his crime. The front gate was shut, so the crowd called out his name, but no response came from the other side. Then the crowd started throwing stones and started breaking things from Javed's house. Inside the house they couldn't find Javed, but they saw 9 kids who seemed well-dressed, well-fed and good from outside, but the people could easily see the pain from the kids' faces. They did not utter a single word, but their screams could be heard by the people through their eyes. They could see the marks on the kids' bodies and could figure out what was being done to them and what they were going through. Javed had fled the scene, but one man from the crowd knew the address of Javed's parents. The crowd went straight to Javed's father's shop and started beating Javed's father and his brother. They beat them to a pulp. The mob ordered them that they should go to police station with them, but they couldn't even stand properly. But the mob took them to the police station anyhow. In the police station, police officer and the mob told Javed's father and his brother everything, but his father kept on repeating that his son was being framed. Javed's father knew that his son was living with young boys for quite a while. He kept on feeling bad for his son and not the victims, but on the other hand, Javed's mother started feeling sorry for the kids and felt disgusted with her own son. Javed was hiding somewhere, but his father and his brother were in police station, and police could not leave them as Javed was still hiding. So his mother came up with a plan. She plotted an idea where she advised police to bring a kid from Javed's house to the station. Then Javed will be compelled to come to station as the kid could reveal his wrongful acts. Police did the same, so Javed had to show up. He was furious that his mother, instead of protecting him, she sided with the police. He met his mother in front of the police station and was about to attack her, but the policemen stopped him so he couldn't. Police arrested him and placed him inside the jail for 2 days. After 2 days, he was taken to the court, but sadly the court gave him 6 months of imprisonment only. For ruining the lives of more than 8 minor kids, he was given such easy punishment. Law failed the people here. While he was in jail, his father still supported him. He even forgave him for ruining their family name. He even tried bribing the police and shortening his son's time in jail, but he couldn't. He was devoted towards his family, and this incident took a toll on his health. He suffered multiple heart attacks when Javed was in jail. His family was also trying to forgive him, and they wanted to get him married to a girl after he returned from the jail. They knew that his preference were young boys, but they still thought the marriage would fix him. It's so sad that people still think girls are the rehab for their spoiled son. It's so sad. And his father died after his last heart attack, and Javed lost contact with everyone. His family was disgusted by him, so they stopped contacting him. After his father's death, Javed got 3 million property in his inheritance. He could use it as he wanted. So now he took his evilness to a next level. He bought a huge mansion-like house. That too in Lahore. It must have cost him a fortune. But he still had lots of money left, and he used the money for a new business. He invested those money in things that could again start his old habits. He opened an arcade. Arcade attracts lots of kids, especially young boys. He opened the arcade just so he could watch the kids play, and chose his victims from the crowd. He kept his eyes on the kids who came alone and came multiple times to the arcade. This arcade games were a new concept in Lahore at that time, so kids were always curious, and once they got the hang of it, they were addicted to it. Among the kids, Javed had his favorite too. He used to lure them by giving them gifts and treating them special. They were drawn to him like a moth drawn to a flame. He used to invite them to his house nearby the arcade. See, he had the entire thing planned. He built the arcade near his house so that he could lure the kids inside his house and abuse them sexually. Another tactic that he used was, he used to drop 100 rupees note while he pretended to stroll around the arcade. Kids would pick the money and keep them inside their shirt or underwear, as they knew that if someone asks them about the money, they would check their pocket. Then Javed would call them out and humiliate them in front of everyone. He used to take advantage of the situation and take them to his house. Sometimes he used to strip them on his own, and other times he would tell the kid to strip and then just look at the kid in a weird way. And he did this to many kids. Many neighbors and the parents of those kids knew that Javed used to take those kids from arcade to his house and rape them, but they could not do anything as he had bribed the police officers too. A victim's mother was later asked why she never complained to the police, and her reply was the police would just shrug them off and never take their words seriously. This went on for years. He was so comfortable and used to this routine that he would assault the kids and would go right back to his sleep. He used to hire young boys for his massage and used to assault them. He never thought that these could do him any harm. One day he hired 2 boys for massage just like usual and assaulted them. One of the kids shared with another kid about the assault that Javed did on them. The another kid also said that it had happened with him. The kid got mad, and he remembered one time during their visit he had seen a revolver inside Javed's room. And on his next visit after Javed fell asleep, the kid took the revolver and bashed on Javed's skull for multiple times. He bashed a part of Javed's head and his jaw. The injury was so extreme that Javed had to be hospitalized for months. During his recovery period, his mother was ill, and after suffering a lot, she died. Javed did regret not meeting his mother during her difficult days, that he could not be with her in her last days, and he blamed the 2 boys for it. He thought that his mother cried during her last days of her life, so he would make 100 mothers cry like his mother did. He planned this idea and started working towards it. He became more inhuman. His mother's death was an event that pushed him towards the edge. In a single year, he assaulted 100 boys and killed them all. Before he did not fear law, now he did not even fear anyone or anything. Disclaimer again, he mentioned in his diary that in year 1998 he targeted every kinds of kid and not just the orphans. He used to lure these kids inside his house and used to click pictures of them, sometimes in a decent standing pose and sometimes without any clothes. He was collecting them as a souvenir from his individual victims. He was collecting it to keep a record for his 100 victims murder plan. He used to pretend that he cared for these kids, but we can clearly see that after looking at the evidence, the pictures that he took were labeled only as number and nothing else. Those kids' life were just some numbers for him. After clicking their pictures, he used to ask them to make some wishes, and he used to fulfill those wishes and win their trust. He used to assault these kids. He used to buy these kids by fulfilling their wishes, so even after going through the assault, kids would be compelled to keep their mouth shut. After going through his diary, police found the pictures of 75 boys and the pictures of their clothes too. In his letter, he had also mentioned that if they wanted to know more about the case, then they should visit his house. They thought he was making things up. But after the news got published in the newspaper, people started visiting the police station, and they were saying that they had seen their kids with Javed before they went missing, and they had seen Javed taking other boys to his house. Now the police started looking into it more seriously. It was hard for them to believe that he killed 100 kids and was now confessing. He had written every single detail about the things he did to the kids. The police got anxious and somewhat terrified. The police went inside Javed's house. The things they saw inside his house traumatized them for eternity. They could not believe their eyes. They could see the bed on which he assaulted the kids and the TV that he used to watch with the kids before killing them. There were 2 sacks named shoes of 100 kids and clothes of 100 kids, and he had even mentioned about the basement where the drums were kept. Inside the drum, he had mentioned that they could find the victims' body parts. So a police inspector did as it was written in the letter. He went down towards the dark basement and he saw a few wood pieces and 2 drums. He tried taking the lid off the drum, but something burnt his finger. He could smell some pungent smell. He used to chop the body of his victim into 100 pieces and used to dissolve it by using hydrochloric acid and sulfuric acid inside the drums. After this, trust me, I was petrified that a human like this could actually exist, and rationalizing his devious sinful murders as a result of his mother's death is absolutely unacceptable. The devils like him deserve to burn in hellfire. And after doing all this, Javed was missing. Police even traced his brother's house, but they replied that they have stopped meeting him and he was not a part of their family. The police kept on checking everywhere, so Javed's sister informed the police about his steel industry, which was his main source of income. The money from the industry were deposited in a bank outside the town, and he would need money to survive. Police went undercover as normal civilians and started looking for Javed near the bank. But Javed was smart and he had anticipated it all, so he took 3 kids with him to the bank and instructed one of them to go inside the bank to get his money. Police recognized the kid and Javed fled the scene. Police took those kids to the police station. They turned the entire town upside down just to find him, but they could not. But after a few days, Javed surrendered himself. Now that he was in police station, he could be interrogated about his motives and could be given the punishment that he deserved. Throughout this process, Javed was unfazed, and first he denied doing any of it, and later he said he was doing an experiment to show incompetency of Pakistan's police department. But he finally accepted that his only intention was to make the mother of 100 kids suffer, and now he can just rest in peace. Many lives were devastated by this man, and he thinks he deserves peace. He was announced the biggest murderer of 20th century. Throughout his trial, Javed Iqbal was seen smiling and looked unfazed by anything. Even the 2 kids looked the same. The judge gave the verdict that Javed Iqbal should be punished in the same manner like his victims suffered. He would be suffocated to a point of semi-consciousness in front of his victims, and his body would be chopped into 100 pieces, dissolved in acid exactly the way he destroyed his victim's body, and be placed in the middle of the street so that no one would dare to do the same again. The judge alone could not have announced such punishment, but the media and the citizen thought it was the only right decision. But before he could have been punished, he hung himself with a small kid with him inside their rooms with the bed sheets. He did not deserve the easy way out, but sadly it happened. He was so meticulous with his plans that he gave the information to the police on the 31st of December of 1999, and his news was published on front cover on the 1st of January of 2000. He had planned this for a long time. The one kid that was still alive said that Javed was a kind man and he loved them. But can you imagine someone killing the people they love? It's so crazy, man. The entire thing is crazy. The one kid that was still alive said that Javed was a kind man and he loved them. But can you imagine someone killing the people they love? It's so crazy, man. The entire thing is crazy. Trust me, I had to censor some contents as some were actually very gruesome. So this was the end of the killing spree of Javed Iqbal Amyar. Tell me in comment section if you like this video and don't forget to subscribe to my channel for such contents.